I don't believe in second chances, she said, her voice calm but trembling at the edges, like someone trying to convince herself of something she no longer felt sure of. I remember thinking how beautiful that contradiction was. The way her words built walls, even as her eyes betrayed her, open, soft, almost asking me to climb over them. The room was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you notice small things, the tick of the clock, the faint scent of rain from the open window, the way her fingers tapped against the edge of her wine glass as if keeping time with her thoughts. She was 40, though she never said it. I knew it in the way she carried herself, poised, deliberate, yet with a certain stillness that only comes from having lived through things you don't talk about anymore. Her laughter wasn't careless like most people's. It came in low, rich notes, shaped by restraint. And me? I was 25, still learning how to pretend I wasn't nervous around her. I shouldn't have been there that late, but she'd said she couldn't sleep. I told her I couldn't either, though that was a lie. I would have stayed awake anyway, thinking about her. The lamp between us threw a soft amber glow across her skin, catching the outline of her collarbone, the curve of her wrist as she lifted the glass. When she looked up at me, the light found her eyes, brown, tired, but alive in a way that made it hard to look anywhere else. "Why are you here?" she asked suddenly. The question hung between us like smoke. I almost said something simple. "You asked me to stay." But the truth was heavier than that. Because she made me feel seen. Because when she looked at me, I forgot how young I was. Because the way she spoke, slowly, thoughtfully, as if words were fragile things, made everything else seem too loud. Instead, I said, "You said you didn't believe in second chances." Her lips curved, just slightly. "I don't." Then silence again. She didn't move, but something shifted, the air, the distance, maybe both. I could feel the warmth from her side of the couch, close enough that if I leaned an inch, I could have touched it. A strand of her hair had fallen across her cheek. My hand lifted before I even thought about it, but stopped halfway. She noticed, of course she did. Her gaze flicked to my hand, then to my eyes, then away. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered. "Like what?" "Like you know something I've spent years trying to forget." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. That sound, that small, involuntary break, felt more intimate than any touch. Outside, thunder rolled low in the distance. The rain had started again, tapping against the glass, dimming the world to just us and the golden light between. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, watching her trace the rim of her glass with her fingertip, lost in thoughts I wanted to reach into. Every few seconds, her eyes would flick back to me, as if checking whether I was still there. And I was. Completely. The storm outside grew louder, and she turned her head toward the sound, her neck catching the light. She exhaled slowly, as if deciding something she'd been resisting all night. Then, a knock at the door. Sharp. Sudden. She froze. Our eyes met again, wide this time, startled, guilty, connected by a single breath. Neither of us moved. And in that stillness, I realized, second chances aren't something you believe in. They're something you take. The knock at the door never mattered. By the time she opened it, whoever it was had already gone, leaving only the echo of footsteps down the hall and the storm outside pressing against the windows. But the silence that followed, that heavy, unspoken kind, stayed with us. She closed the door slowly, leaning her back against it for a moment before turning around. The dim light caught the tired lines around her eyes. They weren't the kind age gives you, they were the kind that come from remembering too much. "You should probably go," she said softly, though she didn't move aside. I wanted to. I really did. But I didn't. "You always say that," I murmured, "but you never mean it." Her lips parted, not in surprise, but something else. Something like fear disguised as composure. She stepped past me, brushing my shoulder lightly, and the faint scent of her perfume, something woody, warm, faintly sweet, followed. "I've made enough mistakes for one lifetime," she said finally, her voice quieter now. "I don't plan on adding another." I almost asked if that's what I was, a mistake. But I could tell she was already asking herself the same thing. She poured herself another glass of wine, her hand steady, though her reflection in the window looked far less sure. I watched her silhouette in the glass, the way her fingers tightened around the stem, the slow, deliberate sip as if she was trying to drown a thought before it could surface. Was he the one who made you stop believing in second chances? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked to me in the glass. He didn't make me stop believing. I just learned not to wait for them. There was something in the way she said it, not bitterness, not sadness, just fatigue. The kind that doesn't go away even when you sleep. She moved to sit again, closer this time, and for a while either of us spoke. The rain softened to a steady whisper outside. I could feel the warmth of her leg against mine, even though we weren't touching. When she finally looked at me, her eyes had that same quiet storm in them. You're too young to understand what happens when life gets complicated. Maybe, I said, but I understand when something feels real. Her breath caught just slightly, a barely audible sound that somehow said everything. She turned toward me then, and for a second, one suspended, trembling second, it felt like she might close the distance between us. Her fingers lifted, brushing the side of my face, tracing the line of my jaw as if memorizing it. Then she pulled back. You don't know what this would cost, she whispered. I don't care, I said before I could think. I just don't want to pretend it's not there. Her eyes softened again, not in surrender, but in something dangerously close. We stayed like that, the room quiet except for our breathing, until she finally exhaled, long and unsteady. Her hand brushed against mine, hesitant at first, then still. Not holding, just touching. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even a beginning. But it was something neither of us were willing to pull away from. The sound of the doorbell hit harder than it should have. Her hand jerked away from mine like it had been burned. For a moment, neither of us breathed. We stood there, too close, too aware. The air between us felt alive, charged with everything we weren't saying. Stay quiet, she whispered, almost to herself. Her voice trembled. Just enough to betray what she was trying to hide. She walked toward the door, smoothing her hair with unsteady hands, the soft clink of her bracelet breaking the silence. Through the glass, I caught a glimpse of someone, a man, older, dressed neatly, holding a small box. My chest tightened. She opened the door halfway, her tone shifting instantly. Warm. Polite. Distant. Oh, Mark! I wasn't expecting you tonight. Mark. The name hit harder than it should have. I was in the area, he said, smiling. Thought I'd drop this off. I couldn't hear what was in the box. I didn't care. What I noticed was her posture, how she leaned on the doorframe like it was holding her up. How she kept the space between them wide enough to breathe. I turned away, pretending to look at the framed photos on the shelf. One of them caught me, a younger version of her, standing beside that same man. Her smile back then didn't look careful. It looked easy. When the door finally shut, the silence was sharp again. She didn't move at first. Just pressed her back against the door and closed her eyes. That was... I started, but the words caught. It doesn't matter, she said quickly. He's just someone I used to know. Used to. The lie was soft, but it lingered. I took a step closer, careful, quiet. She didn't move away. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Does he still love you? I asked, my voice low. Her eyes opened, slowly, meeting mine. That's not the question you should be asking. Then what should I ask? Her lips parted, and for a second, I thought she might tell me. Instead, she looked down, and I noticed her fingers trembling at her side. I reached out before I could stop myself, brushing her hand with mine. She froze. Don't, she whispered, though she didn't pull away. Why? Because I'll stop pretending I don't want this. Her words landed somewhere between confession and collapse. For a long moment, we just stood there, close enough to feel each breath. The faint scent of her perfume filled the space between us again, jasmine, and something warm. Her eyes lifted, slow, uncertain. The distance between us disappeared in a heartbeat. And just as my hand moved to her face, the sound of her phone shattered the silence. She stepped back, eyes flicking to the screen, unreadable. I could still feel the warmth of her skin where our hands had almost met. The kind of closeness that shouldn't exist, but did. She turned away, voice low. You should go. I didn't move. Neither did she. We both knew, even if nothing had happened, something had already changed. ChatGPT said. It was raining the night everything cracked open. She stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the drops race each other down the glass. Her reflection flickered in the dim light, calm, contained, lying. I lingered near the doorway, pretending to look anywhere but at her. The rain had soaked through my shirt, clinging to my skin. I hadn't planned on coming here. I just did. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? I laughed softly, one of those laughs that sound too tired to be real. Because you keep telling me not to come, but you never close the door. Her lips parted, a quick flash of guilt or anger, I couldn't tell which. You think this is easy for me? I took a step forward. No. I think it's killing you. That silence, that fragile, suffocating silence, filled the space between us again. She turned, and for the first time, didn't look away. You don't understand what this could ruin, she said. My life, my name. I'm not asking for your life. I cut in. I'm just asking for the truth. Her eyes shimmered, catching the light from the street lamp outside. The truth? I nodded. Her breath hitched. Then, softer than a whisper, I think about you. Every time you leave. The words landed like thunder, quiet but unstoppable. I moved closer, step by step, until I could feel the warmth of her breath. My hand brushed a strand of wet hair from her face, fingertips trembling. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. You shouldn't say things like that. I murmured. Why? Because I'll believe them. Her laugh was faint, almost a sigh. You already do. I could smell her perfume again, that same warm jasmine, mixing with the scent of rain. Her hand rose hesitantly, hovering near my chest, then stopping, resting there like she was testing the boundary she'd just broken. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You make me feel like I'm doing something terrible. Maybe we both are, I said. But I don't care anymore. She shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. They softened, the fear folding into something else. Something hungrier. The air was thick now. Charged. Our words barely existed between heartbeats. She took a slow breath. If I let this happen, I interrupted gently, leaning closer. Then it happens. Her back touched the wall behind her, but she didn't retreat. My hand found hers, fingers brushing, curling, tentative then sure. The world outside disappeared. Just the sound of rain, the hum of two people holding too much in. Her lips parted barely. The distance between us was a single breath. Then, a sudden knock at the door. She froze. My hand lingered on hers, unwilling to let go. The knock faded, leaving behind a silence that felt louder than thunder. She stepped away first, pulling her hand back like she'd touched something burning. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. I could still feel the ghost of her fingers on mine. Who was that? I asked, my voice barely steady. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pressed a hand to her temple, eyes darting toward the door. No one. Just someone who shouldn't be here. But her tone betrayed her. It wasn't fear of the person outside, it was fear of what that knock had broken open inside her. When the sound of footsteps faded down the hall, I finally exhaled. You're shaking. She forced a small laugh, but it cracked halfway through. I shouldn't have said what I said. You weren't supposed to hear that. Too late, I said. I did. Her eyes lifted to mine, those same steady, beautiful eyes that had always kept a safe distance. Only now they were trembling too. I lied, she whispered. About what? About why I kept you around. My chest tightened. Then why? She looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of the counter just to have something to do. Because I didn't want to forget what it felt like to be wanted. You made me remember. The room felt smaller suddenly. My pulse was a drum against my throat. And now? She looked up, eyes glistening. Now it feels dangerous. Her honesty hit like lightning, no drama, no build-up. Just raw truth, standing there between us. I took a step forward, slow enough for her to stop me. She didn't. Dangerous doesn't scare me, I said. It should, she whispered. I reached out, not touching her, just close enough that she could feel the pull. Tell me to go, and I will. Her eyes flickered, unsure, and for a moment she almost said it. But instead, she whispered, He knows. My breath caught. Who? She hesitated then. My ex-husband. He came by earlier. He saw your messages. The floor dropped beneath us. What did you tell him? That it was nothing. She laughed quietly, hollow. But he didn't believe me. He said I'm acting like I'm 20 again. I stepped closer until we were inches apart. And are you? She didn't answer, just exhaled, trembling, the air between us too heavy to breathe. I don't want to hurt anyone, she said softly. But I can't pretend this isn't real. Her voice broke on the last word. My hand found hers again, not bold this time, just steady. She didn't pull away. Then, a vibration cut through the silence, her phone, lighting up on the table. His name. She stared at it, then at me, caught between two lives. I could see the choice forming behind her eyes, the moment everything was about to change. She swallowed hard, whispering, If I answer this, it ends. I looked at her, the rain still echoing against the window. And if you don't? Her hand hovered over the phone, shaking, and then it stopped ringing. Neither of us moved. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the sound of a decision being made without words. The phone screen dimmed, leaving only the sound of rain and the soft rhythm of her breathing. She didn't move. Neither did I. The space between us had never felt smaller, or heavier. Her voice was quiet, almost afraid to exist. He'll come back. He always does. Then let him, I said, stepping closer. She shook her head. You don't understand. He knows what to look for now. The way I look at you. That last part came out barely audible, a confession dressed as regret. I reached up, my hand hovering near her face but not touching. Then stopped looking. Her eyes lifted, steady but trembling, and for a second, we both knew she wouldn't. The air between us cracked with something unspoken, not lust, not love, but something heavier, something that didn't belong in words. Tell me to go, I whispered. Please. She closed her eyes. I can't. I felt the weight of it, every stolen glance, every held breath, every time she almost reached for me and didn't. I finally touched her, just a strand of her hair, brushing it back from her face. My fingers grazed her cheek, and she froze, eyes fluttering open like she'd been holding her breath for too long. This isn't fair, she said, her voice breaking. You're too young to understand what happens after. Then teach me, I said quietly. Her laugh came out small and helpless, trembling at the edges. You shouldn't say things like that. Then stop waiting for me to. The words hung there, and for a heartbeat, either of us could look away. She took one step forward, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin, smelled the faint trace of rain and jasmine in her hair. Her hand came up, resting against my chest, fingers clutching fabric like she needed proof that I was real. You think this ends well? She asked. I don't care how it ends, I said. I just don't want to lie anymore. The sound that escaped her, half sigh, half laugh, was the most human thing I'd ever heard. God, you make it sound so simple. It is. It's not. And then, without warning, she leaned in, not a kiss, not quite, just her forehead against mine, her breath trembling between us. For a long moment, neither of us moved. My hand found hers, fingers threading together slowly, like we were afraid the world might break if we rushed it. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But not tonight." Her eyes searched mine, tired, wanting, terrified. And then she nodded, barely, as if she finally understood something she'd been trying not to see. She pulled back just enough to look at me fully. "Then stay," she said. "But after tonight, everything changes." And as the rain softened outside, and her hand lingered in mine, I realized she wasn't talking about regret anymore. She was talking about the point of no return. The morning after felt quieter than it should have. Not because something broke, but because something finally settled. The rain had stopped. The sky outside was still gray, soft light spilling through the half-drawn curtains, catching the faint movement of her hair as she sat by the window, legs drawn up, coffee cooling in her hands. I stood in the doorway, not saying anything. There was no need to. Every word we hadn't said last night still lingered between us, but it didn't ache the same way anymore. She turned slightly, catching me watching her. A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, the kind of smile that carried exhaustion, relief, and something close to peace. "You didn't leave," she said softly. "I told you I wouldn't." Her eyes flicked down, tracing the edge of the cup in her hands. "People usually do." I walked closer, slow steps, as if moving too fast might break the spell. "I'm not most people." That earned a quiet laugh, the kind that sounded like something healing. For a long time, we just stayed there, the space between us no longer dangerous, just real. The air felt different now, steady. Finally, I sat beside her. Our shoulders brushed, and that small, familiar spark, the one that used to make us flinch, just felt right this time. She glanced sideways, studying me with that look she always used when she wanted to memorize something. "You don't regret it?" I shook my head. "Do you?" She thought about it. I could see the hesitation flicker across her face, the way her thumb traced invisible circles on her knee. Then she whispered, "No. I think I just wish I'd been braver sooner." I reached over and took the mug from her, setting it aside. My hand lingered there, over hers, before I said quietly, "You were brave enough to ask me to stay. That's more than most people ever do." Her fingers curled around mine, slow and deliberate. She didn't pull away this time. Outside, a breeze stirred the curtains, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sang, a small, simple sound that made the moment feel impossibly grounded. "I don't know what happens next," she said. "Neither do I," I admitted. "But for once, I'm okay not knowing." She smiled again, this time fully, a smile that didn't hide behind fear or reason. Then, in the quiet that followed, she leaned her head against my shoulder. It wasn't dramatic or desperate, just soft, like an exhale after a storm. My hand found hers again, our fingers interlocking naturally, like they'd been waiting for this. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt still. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. She whispered, "You make me believe in second chances." I turned, brushing my lips against her forehead. "You make them worth it." Outside, the day finally began, slow, gentle, forgiving. And we just sat there, wrapped in the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?" Outside, the knock came again, louder this time. And for one unbearable second, either of us knew which we feared more, being caught, or stopping. Nst mine, as if she wanted to let go, but couldn't.